So when you talk about transformation, you can read books, you can listen to, business owners that have been through that process that truly have transformed their organizations. But until you experience it, you just, you can't describe it. You can't, and as challenging as it was, here we are 5 years later looking back. From a business standpoint, I talk to other business owners, guys that are just off the chart affluent in this community, and they'll tell you that was probably the worst business decision you could have ever made. But let me tell you, it's also on the right side of the decision. So never second guess it, and many of them have had to do the same thing and experience the same thing with the shrink of the business, and then basically you're having to rebuild it. So 2020, last year, we had a 40% growth, okay? So the 4 years up to that point, tremendous losses in terms of revenue, earnings, 401k, 100%, had to put it in, any savings, sold my building. It was all in.
Welcome to Winning Strategies Playbook, the podcast where we welcome business leaders, CEOs, and industry experts to discuss the rise to the top, building wealth, and real estate insights. Here's your host, Jeremy Spann.
Welcome to Winning Strategies Playbook. You can go to our website, myexperiencedrealtor.com. That's experience with an ED for my fellow Marines out there for when we might not necessarily write everything right. So myexperiencedrealtor.com. Click on podcasts. You can download this episode, other episodes on Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, YouTube, and you can even click on the read more to learn about my guest like today, Tim Vela. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, fantastic. Thank you, Jeremy. How you doing?
Dan, I'm doing great. Thanks
Good.
for coming here and spending some time with us and to share your wealth and knowledge. But we start these things off with a joke. My father-in-law says I got to do a joke. So if I got to do a joke, I'm going to do a bad joke.
Okay.
Because it's his fault why I got to do jokes. So when he's listening to this, he knows this is what he caused. And I think you'll find this, you'll appreciate this one in the industry that you're in. A weed is a plant that is not in the wrong place and intends to stay.
Okay.
Another bad one. I told you they're not good, right? They're not. There's nothing good about them.
It was good for your first landscape joke.
We had one earlier on a recording today, and at the end he's like, "Man, I'm sorry I didn't laugh at your joke." I said, "It's intended for you not to laugh. If you laughed, then you really have a sense of humor." Which I know about you. So let's talk to the audience to kind of set a little stage here of how you and I met several years ago and how we just kind of built a relationship to where we are today. So I believe the first time you and I met was in downtown Fort Worth. It was a mentor award ceremony, something or another. My wife was getting an award, and I can't remember if it was you or someone else that you were there with that was getting an award.
No, it was me. So it was through the business press, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Was it a mentoring or a minority, I think, award, Fort Worth Club.
Mm-hmm.
And, just a great group of people. I was kind of looking around saying, why am I here? Kind of, this is pretty special. So, had the opportunity to accept that and give a little exposure to the organization that I am building at this moment. So a good friend of mine too, Henry Suisa, who you met, was a captain in the Army, retired, and really shed light on kind of the veteran space that we're in. But that was 5 years ago, 4 years ago. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
Yeah.
And then we followed up with it as after you and I connected there. I said, hey, why don't you grab some of your vets and we'll talk about Tim's business and what he does and how vets are involved.
Right.
I said, let's go to Defender and do some shooting.
Yes.
What's more way to do bonding time than shooting fully automatic weapons, right?
Yeah. So that was special. So I had my son there too, Hunter.
That's right.
At the moment. And we all laughed today because when I picked up the the gun, I just started sweating. I mean, I was so nervous, and it's second nature to everyone else that I was with and yourself to kind of pick up those guns and shoot. But great time. So
I remember when your son came,
Yeah.
and we were also laughing at him because Taylor, who is the girl that works the room,
there you go.
former Miss Dallas,
Yes.
incredibly gorgeous blonde.
Yes.
And man, he was as red comes. And
I still have the picture.
that's right. So hey, we're like, hey, you need to get a picture with Miss Dallas. And he was red. And
You have a great memory. That's a good memory.
My wife wishes I would remember other things better.
Yeah.
She's like, you remember the most insignificant things.
Right. Yeah.
Or we'll just be sitting there and I'll be like, hey, do you remember this? She's like, how do you remember something?
Right.
She goes, you can't remember when you were supposed to go do this.
Right. Yeah.
But you can remember that? And I'm like, I don't know how my brain works. It's odd.
Typical guy.
Oh, yeah, typical.
Guy.
So let's tell the audience, now that they know how you and I know each other, now, tell me the name of your company and what your company does and what it is you're trying to build here.
Sure. Company name is United Veterans Construction and Landscape Solutions. We're based here in Fort Worth. The former company, so been in business almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years this January. We're in the commercial landscape space, which is maintenance, mowing, kind of those traditional landscape needs, water management, plant health care, arbor care, which is trees, and then construction. So those are the 5 disciplines that we tend to stick to. I would say large scale commercial is our forte. So we're not doing the residential, home landscape. These are typically big commercial sites that we deal with. So 20 years, we haven't always been known as what we refer to as UVets, but the former company was AST Landscape. But 5 years ago, as I mentioned earlier, a good friend of mine who was a veteran, and by the way, he's no longer here. He passed away this past 2 months ago.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so, high school friend, grew up together. Matter of fact, my junior year, believe it or not, I was put out on my own. Basically shown the door at my house and said, you know what, go make it in this world. And so, had some really special friends at the time that basically said, you know what, you come live with me. And Henry was one of those guys. And so I kind of split time between his house and another friend's house at the time. And greatest time in my life, to be honest with you. Henry and I we were brothers, and I always viewed him as this little brother. I was there to protect him because he was a lot smaller with me. I was a fairly, big football, linebacker and, one of the stronger people on the team. You can't tell today, but, I had a little bit of an edge. He had the mouth and I had the guns, so to speak. So he would start it and I would finish it. We would laugh to this day. Of course, what we did back then, you can't do today. But just a tremendous amount of memories I had with Henry. So bringing it forward to UVets, 5 years ago, it was Christmas of 2015, Rough Creek Lodge. We met up for the holidays. He had his wife, I had my wife, and he was out of the military at the time, but struggling with the transition. He always understood, that it was difficult, but he was experiencing it and said, Tim, you have a real opportunity today to take your organization and, kind of create a purpose that is going to be more meaningful than what the business was at the time. And I'll be honest with you, 15 years in business, I was very prideful. And what follows pride is humility. So I felt like, boy, the 15 years, I know what I got. I know, very proud of it. And I felt, boy, this might be a good time to kind of jump into something to create purpose, not just a business that I own. And about 6 months later, he and I got together. He came on board. I hired him to be the COO of the business. And he didn't know anything about the landscape business, and but was just a people's person. Just really had the vision and had this tremendous affection for veterans and the struggles that they have. He was on the behavioral health side of the Army. Just an incredibly talented and educated individual when it came to behavioral science, and dealt with a lot of the PTSD in the military, and those that were still serving, and then those that had transitioned out. So it was one of those things that early on really didn't understand. Just felt right. My gut told me that, okay, no, we have an issue in our business, and that is that the pond is pretty shallow in terms of talent. It's a low skill business. To grow our organization, though, I needed access to a little bit different talent, mindset. And it seemed to really match up two issues: the transition, and then the green industry, and the talent, lack of talent that I was looking for. And here we are 5 years later. And it's been tough. I always thought 15 years in it that I had my 10,000 hours behind me. I knew the business, I knew how to grow the business, but when we made the decision to really repurpose, transform, a true transformation of our business, I didn't realize how hard it was going to be. So let me give you a couple of examples. The first thing we did is we went to e-verification.
To what?
It's called e-verification.
And what is that?
So e-verification is a government program where Social Security numbers and names are matched up. So part of the issue in our industry is they have a systemic problem. It's called illegal immigrants. And at the time we felt, how are we going to recruit veterans when there's a possibility in our business that we were going to have some illegal immigrants? So, we need to identify and clean that up first. So the first step was, we're going to be different than other commercial landscape businesses. We're going to e-verify the entire organization, and any new hire coming in, we're going to run it through the database. And if it doesn't match up, we're not going to hire. So that created a tremendous amount of challenge, because what happened is it did flush out employees in our organization that didn't come back as a match. And so we had to immediately terminate a sizable part of our workforce, over 50% of the workforce. We were doing everything legally up to that point. We had I-9s, we were doing the W-2s, everything, according to what the laws were. E-verification is taking it to that next step, where now you're going to get a government agency to validate that those match up.
Roughly how many employees did you have?
We had close to 40 employees at that time.
So 50%, you went from 40 down to 20.
Probably closer to 65% loss of employees. So what happens next? So if you don't have employees, you can't serve the client. So right behind that was, one by one, the dominoes started falling. And we ended up losing a significant amount of revenue at the time. And it took about 1.5 years for it to just slowly unravel. So when you talk about transformation, you can read books, you can listen to business owners that have been through that process, that truly have transformed their organizations. But until you experience it, you just, you can't describe it. You can't, and as challenging as it was, here we are 5 years later looking back. from a business standpoint, I talk to other business owners, guys that are just off the chart affluent in this community, and they'll tell you that was probably the worst business decision you could have ever made. But let me tell you, it's also on the right side of the decision. So never second guess it. And many of them have had to do the same thing and experience the same thing with the shrink of the business, and then basically you're having to rebuild it. So 2020, last year, we had a 40% growth. Okay, so the 4 years up to that point, tremendous losses in terms of revenue, earnings, 401k, 100% had to put it in, any savings, sold my building. It was all in for me.
Wow.
And it was a decision, I'll tell you, there was nothing more humbling when my wife called me and said, I can't buy groceries. The cards decline. I said, what? How's that? And I called the bank and they said, you're cut off. Pay back our loan that we had in the business. I was shocked. Just absolutely shocked. But at the same time, I was sitting back saying, you know what? Others have been here. Okay, I'm not the first entrepreneur that has done this. This has happened many times over. It's just my time. So let me embrace it. I told my wife, Erica, said, I'm coming home. And to this day, I remember sitting down on the couch, sitting down with her, and it was the most incredible conversation. Calm, and kind of saw her strength come through, where she always trusted me, but it was her turn to backbone it. And I saw that, and I'm like, wow, we're going to be okay. As long as she's okay, I'm okay. I know I can rebuild it. I'm not worried about that. And so, that's my 10,000 hours, the outliers. I felt like, okay, I'm still in the, those years of gaining the experience, but at least I'm past that now. Right. So as I said, last year, 40% growth. We haven't quite reached our peak in 2015, which was a record year for us. But we're back in the black. This year, we're off to about a 30% growth. And by the way, that 40% was COVID. Okay. So think about that, a COVID year. So yes, we are one of those essential businesses. But I was talking to AJ, that doesn't mean that we didn't have our challenges. Just because we were able to remain in business, it's mind-boggling the things that you have to come across that you thought you've seen everything and you haven't. So I've learned to really adapt. Just don't ever feel like you've seen it all. You got to be the cool cat that when it happens, just bring it down. So, tough year, but record growth year and back in the black. And this year, we're still growing. So, not saying we're out of the woods, but we have come a long way, and I'm proud of the team. I'll tell you, it's not me. When everything hit the fan, and you met him, Thomas Williams.
Mm-hmm.
It got so bad that my friend Henry, he walked away. He saw the writing on the wall, and we lost touch. And I wasn't angry. I was disappointed. But, you carry on, you carry forward, and passed away, never had that reconciliation, but he'll always be a friend. He'll always be my little brother. No ill will. You make a decision, you roll with it. Period. No complaining, no pointing. You own it. So,
yeah, I think that's the hard one of the hard things about owning businesses is it's really difficult, I think, sometimes for employees to understand they're looking up, right? And they might just be looking up only one lane, right? One tree. And you're at 35,000 foot dealing with everything, right? One employee is typically, not saying this with Henry, and just actually had experienced this with myself going through the restaurant stuff, or more so my GM experienced it with the restaurant stuff, is employees coming and then going, well, what's going to happen to me? And you do your best to reassure them, we're doing the best we can with all the resources, all the tools, everything I have, doing the best that I can. And people go, well, do you ever tell, the employees all the stuff you're dealing with? And I was like, no, because it would be like me speaking Mandarin to you, and you don't understand or speak Mandarin. They don't have the concept of heavy is the crown, right? The old saying is that, as I was, because I have several companies, profit and restaurant. I've got investment properties with over 35 tenants. I've got, our real estate business. So it wasn't just one business, it was all of them. And everybody had the same fears and the same concerns. And they're all, hey, what are we going to do? How are things? Blah, blah. And it was like you just said, the only thing you can do is be calm. My GM of my restaurant, incredible human being, has done a hell of a job navigating this. 1.2 revenue in 2019, but 2020, we barely made 7. I'm not telling you anything you haven't experienced.
Right.
You've been right
Yeah.
through. Yeah. One day, he calls me, and he's just screaming on the phone. There's my wife and my daughter screaming. I understand. He hangs up the phone. Laura goes, did he just hang up the phone on you? Yeah. He goes, what are you going to do about it? I says, well, I'm going to go get online. He said, why? I said, well, I'm going to go order her some flowers. And I went on there and I found it. It was a big yellow vase with a smiley face and just some bright flowers.
Yeah.
And I sent it to him. She goes, why the hell would you do that? And I said, what am I going to do? Scream at him back?
Right. Yeah.
All I'm going to do is make a bad problem worse.
Yeah.
I said, 2, I'd rather him scream at me than scream at the customers and the employees and the vendors. If I need to be that outlet, that's fine.
Yeah.
I said, and 3, he's under a lot of stress. He's living under a lot of stress. My job as his boss, his leader, is to try to do what I can to relieve that as much as possible, which was incidentally kind of funny because we have cameras at the business and in the office, which I never log into, but I did because it's got, and it was on purpose. The camera in the office has a microphone. So that way when we have to have uncomfortable conversations with employees, it's recorded.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, I turned on it and I'm sitting there, because they send you a text, hey, the flower's being delivered.
Yeah.
And then you hear the steps coming up because his wife works there too.
Yeah.
And she goes up with flowers. And he's like, what the hell is this? And then he opens the card and he goes, oh, you got to be kidding me. And at that time is when I called him and he goes, did you really just send me flowers? And I said, I don't know what's better, is the fact that you've gotten them or that I just watched your reaction. And he's like, big brother watching you. It's kind of funny, but that's what we have to do as leaders, because the employees depend on us and to try to do the best thing we can. And really, when you want to look at them sometimes and go, I don't have the answers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And we're creating an image of we're calm. I don't realize we're scared to death.
Yeah.
Terrified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned Tommy, when it really hit the fan, because it was payroll time and all the money's in, gone.
Yeah.
When we got together in the conference room, and it was Tommy and Deanna, and I'll never forget this, and this is where the veteran piece solidified for me, that we can't make payroll. There are certain people that, number one, I'm not getting paid. And Tommy was like, well, neither am I. And I kind of looked at him. He's like, you don't need to pay me. That command sergeant major came out that day. Highly respectful. One of the most respectful individuals I've ever come across. And when he did that, it was powerful. That was one of the saving graces that, why? Why would someone do that? But I've learned that's the MO, right? I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I got your back, and we're going to get through this. So it was almost like reverse role. I needed to hear that because you're right. You're scared to death. What are we going to do? What's the next move? And so, but that gave me a lot of confidence. Like, okay, I got someone there, and we'll repay it. We're going to make it right. Deanna came here from Puerto Rico. Her husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's, so came here for the health care, after, growing up and living in Puerto Rico. And, she's 3 years into this organization and scared to death, like, well, what's going to happen, to me? So, we just bonded, which is all part of the transformation. Since then, Tommy has moved on, but we remain very close. And that's getting to the purpose of the organization. So our purpose is providing veterans opportunities they earned, period. It's why we exist. It's no longer that other company. I try and de-emphasize myself. I don't want to hear my name in this organization. Every day I try and transition out of the business. Not that I want to get out of the business, but I want to sustain it. I'd love for this organization to be picked up and continued, with a veteran group or veteran friendly, leadership team to carry it forward. And we're well on our way, to that being accomplished. But, in Tommy's case, he, did his transition because most don't know, well, where do I want to be? What do I want to do? And here we are, a landscape company. What do I know about landscape? There's not when you think about landscape, it's a funny story. I love selling, and I was out there, telling how wonderful this organization is and what our purpose is and core values and all this. And, the lady on the end of this sales pitch, stops and says, do you mow grass? Yeah, but do you mow grass? And I knew right there, okay, this probably isn't the right client. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on. But when I say that, we are about purpose. It's not landscape. It's growing this organization to put as many veterans to work, learn not necessarily landscape, but the business, and then go build what we call FOBs, right? Forward operating bases in other markets. So we want to go down 35, but we want to train here in Fort Worth, get the veteran ready. Okay, go open up Dallas, go open up Austin, Houston, San Antonio is the plan. And then push out from there. So, our vision is there. All the hard work over the last 5 years to really kind of blue bucket, if you will, has been in the works, and our plan is next year that we're determined we're going to open up that first fob, and so once that happens, I think 2-3 locations. I think that's gonna be the test. For me, that's going to be the confirmation that we think we're building something pretty special. We think, in the industry that we're in, there's nothing like it out in the market. Our client base loves it. Okay. They love the fact that, we're addressing a problem. They love veterans. I mean, we're in a great market that love veterans. My affinity, I'm not a veteran, I wish I was, I think it would have been a fantastic opportunity, but one of those regrets in life, I think I would have been a pretty good soldier. Have a tremendous amount of respect and a lot of family members that are in it. My son, Hunter, again, who we talked about earlier, is in the ROTC program. So he's contracted when he finishes up his degree to go Army and, serve his time. So very proud of him. So yeah, it's about now, not me. It's about, what can we do, in this industry and, provide opportunities that veterans earned.
So, and I've been taking a lot of notes because there's definitely a lot of things that I want to come back to. But I want to first and foremost touch on this regret for not serving.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times I hear that from folks. We all serve a purpose in life, right? And I always, as a matter of fact, to the point, for now 7, 8 years or more, when somebody comes up and says, "Oh, you're not United States Marine." Yeah. What'd you do in the Marine Corps? And I just keep it very open book. And I go, I was with 3rd Marines. They're like, yeah, but what did you do? And I go, I'm so glad you asked, because I want to make sure that anybody's service, that one job over the other didn't seem more important. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with saying I was infantry, I was a pilot, I was recon, I was a cook, or I was a truck driver. Own it, right? Own it.
Yep.
But the reason I don't is because I wanted to create an avenue where everybody's service mattered. Because here's the deal. You have jobs in the military that aren't as sexy as other jobs, but they're absolutely essential. And a prime example of that is October 2019. I was very fortunate to be selected to go fly with the Blue Angels in one of their F-18s. I'll just say now, they do have the coolest job, right? Yeah. I mean, come on, being a fighter pilot and being the Blue Angels, that's pretty cool.
I was jealous.
Yeah, all right. That one wins, right? Yeah. That one wins, right? As a matter of fact, you.
No, I saw it. You talked about it. I didn't go out there.
So
I'm like, how?
There was a couple of people that I didn't expect to show up. I was like, because I posted online and it came out there.
Yeah.
And I was so just blown away by it that day that it was just almost a blur, right? Yeah. And that following weekend, I was asked to be the guest of honor and guest speaker at the Marine Corps birthday ball for the local F-18 fighter group. And I was like, man, actually, and their commanding officer was like, hey, do you have a speech? I was like, yeah, but I've rewritten it since Wednesday. He's like, what? It's going to be good, right? I said, man, it's going to be great. So I get up there and I said, hey, people often ask me, what'd you do in the Marine Corps? And this experience with the Blue Angels was reinforced why I always just leave it very ambiguous. It's not because I'm not proud of what I did. I'm extremely proud of what I did. I'm extremely proud of the people that I served with. I had a hell of a time. It was a great part of my life. Taught me to become who I am. But I always want everybody to always feel like their service, no matter what they did, mattered. And so I'm telling this group of Marines and their spouses and the guests, and I said, so when I had put on this flight suit and I was climbing into the cockpit of one of the most powerful fighting machines on the planet, you see these jets and you see them flying around, but until you climb in the cockpit of this thing, you're like, whoa.
Mm.
And all I'm thinking at that moment is the pilot flying this thing is now the most important person in my life. We're getting ready to be up in the air.
Right.
Then this crew chief, this young kid, probably no older than 23 or 24, is buckling me in and strapping me in and getting my helmet secured, the mic, the whole 9 yards. And he's making sure that I'm good to go. Well, actually, pilot's no longer the most important person in my life because the pilot's got one job and that's fly the plane. The crew chief's got one job is to make sure the plane can be flown.
Mm.
And he's buckling me in.
Mhm.
So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, this guy's the most important person in my life right now. And then as he's buckling in, he says, all right, if something goes wrong, don't worry. The pilot is going to pull your ejection. You just hold on for the ride. And I was like, okay, well,
Wow.
he's no longer the most important person in my life. The guy, the whoever the guy or gal, whoever is the ejection seat person at that moment now
Right, right.
became the most
Yeah.
important person
Right.
in my life. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I really hope this person didn't screw up their job. That's the most important person in my life. And then I look over to my left where the fuel truck is and the fuel truck person, right? Another 20, 21-year-old kid, right? And then I looked over and I don't know much about planes or anything else. And I was like, that person's now the most important
Right.
job.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, nobody wants to be the fuel person. I was
Right.
like, that person's the most important person in my life because what if they didn't put in the right amount of fuel or the wrong fuel or any of this? Again, I don't know enough. And then it finally ended with, and I'm in this room full of Marines. I said, who's the admin clerk in here? Because nobody ever sees the admin clerk as being the sexy position. This Marine raises his hand. And I said, I realized if nobody got paid today, everybody's distracted. And then I got to worry about everybody. So you became the most important person in my life. And he was like, I'm telling you all right now. So he was excited because he got his acknowledgement, right? He was like, I am important in what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and it gave a lot of content to what I had been doing for years is to go, very proud of what I did, but I always wanted people to feel significant.
Yeah.
But also, I'm surrounded by people that there's people that say, thank you for your service. And then there's people that go, no, really, thank you for your service, like yourself. And that go, man, I wished I would have served, blah, blah, blah. And this is the way I'm bringing it back. Just like being a business owner. How many people will be in the last minutes of their life and regret never pulling the trigger to go be a business owner?
Yeah.
Right?
True.
Right?
Yeah.
So what it was is your purpose. Yeah, maybe. So I would say never regret it.
Yeah.
It's, more of, I think I missed out on something is probably the more proper word I would say.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Because how many people, and you and I have talked about this, the difference between entrepreneur spirit and entrepreneur courage.
Right.
You got a lot of people want to be entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
but are they willing to take the courage to go without a paycheck or go, honey, I'm on my way home because we can't buy groceries. And by the way, this isn't because it was in your first year of doing this business. You'd already built it up to be incredibly successful, changed your business model, transformation, not just a transition, transformation.
Right.
Those are the scary parts. And I'll tell you right now, I know military folks, Marines that have been deployed multiple times to combat, killed a lot of bad guys, had a lot of buddies that were killed, even got Purple Hearts themselves, and would rather go do that again
Mm-hmm.
than do what you've done. And that's why when folks come around, I'm like, we all serve a purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's what we do because there's no difference in the courage. Because look, the courage to run at people shooting at you, sure, that's courage, but those same folks would not want to be in the shoes that you're in, right? That's really important for the audience out there, because when I got out of the Marine Corps, now this year will make 24, 25 years ago,
Okay.
a lot of yellow ribbons on trees. Getting out, done my service, I'm coming back, I deserve a job. No. I don't have any interviews I went to, and no job.
Mm.
So when I first met you and I understood what it was you were building, I was like, man, that's someone that's putting their money where their mouth is. And you literally losing 65% of your employment base, losing revenues, losing clients. You actually did it. You put your money where your mouth is. And that's not for the faint of heart. That is hard, because at some point, the benefits do resurface. Like you just said, is even during a year of the pandemic, grew 40%, not out of the woods, but in the black, which some people that are in the business world that don't own a business go, yeah, well, they're not there, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but they don't understand all the hours. Like when somebody else is responsible for paying you, and you can go home and then get up and go back, and it's a Fortune 100 company, all that. You don't have the same concept of what 40% growth is. You're growing 40% for your shareholders. You're growing 40% that is going to actually affect lives every single day. And Tim, I don't know any other way to define courage. That's courage right there.
Well, you're right. I think we all have our purpose. I refer to it as God's plan at the end of the day.
And if you ever want to make him laugh, tell him yours.
Oh yeah, that's a humility. It catches you, but you also grow through it. That's the silver lining. As hard as it was, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change the experience, the conversations, the coming and going of people, good people too. I lost good people. But I think you're right. It's not regret. I think it would have been a great experience, but I'm experiencing today. I get to see, those experiences, and that is what makes our culture so unique. Is we tend to step back a little bit, and I ask a lot of questions. Tell me about that. Case in point, I don't think you've met Ellen Hahn, our Chief Operating Officer, Lieutenant Colonel. Joined us in October of last year. Apache attack helicopter pilot. So 25 years, Army. Just an incredible individual, and actually has a foundation, which I want to shout out, called American Warrior or Apache Warrior Foundation, that he founded, which really caters to that community. What you were talking about, the individuals, it's not the pilot, it's everyone that surrounds the pilot, all the way down to the families, of the crew chiefs. And, so just a fabulous foundation that he started in, to really help, the transition, the issues that tend to, be there. So, and so fortunate to have him on board. He's learning the landscape business. I'm not the easiest guy to get along with. When you put let's say a CEO with, lieutenant colonel, right, that's been a career in it, that's an odd, pair right there. And, he'll be the first to tell you. So I get to continue to learn kind of what does it mean to be a lieutenant colonel. I'm just enamored with it, like this is pretty cool. We got our lieutenant colonel. So I take a lot of pride in it. But, we also, I'm grooming him, and, to some degree he's grooming me to what it is, because what you talked about, I don't think most CEOs on the civilian side understand the brotherhood, understand the unsung hero. We don't. I know I didn't. It's not I would say I didn't look at the guy on the line trimmer or on the mower, right? Just want to deal up here, with my leadership team. You talk to the lieutenant colonel, it is all about that production team. And you know what? I don't care about you, Mr. CEO. It's the team. And that goes back to when Henry was there, Tommy was there, and that was a hard pill for me to understand. But boy, is there a lesson there that you cannot lose sight of the unsung heroes that are truly in that business. Like you said, the administrator, down to the administrator that never gets called out and gets excited. So
it's really interesting for you to touch on this, and you're right. And a part of it too is exposure, right? Different perspectives for different exposure, right? And I'm sure you've learned that there is a significance in the difference between a command sergeant major and a lieutenant colonel as well. Like even within that culture, it's two different philosophies.
Incredible.
Right?
It's incredible.
And there's just so much degrees of that. I want to go back to something that you said that I do believe this is what helps make good leaders. Something you and I have in common. So my organization, Cowtown Warriors, not mine, but I founded it. I started it. And then last November, I rolled off the board of it. People were shocked. Like, why would you do that? There's something going on. Blah, blah, blah. And I said, no. Matter of fact, it's funny as a saying that I use is, I can build you the best landscaping money can buy, but I'm not going to get you a yard of the money. Yeah. Right. I'm not designed that way. I'm not the detail guy. I know how to build great teams. I know how to identify opportunities. I know how to bring it together. I know how to, the thing about guys like you and I is we're too dumb to quit at anything, right?
So true.
My buddy Jamie Peace tells me that. He goes, "You're too dumb to quit,"
The wife tells me, what are you doing?
Like, what's wrong with you? You got brain damage? Like, what the hell? Did you get a TBI while you're in the military?
Right.
Traumatic brain injury, for anybody who know what a TBI is. And so, I knew that the organization at that point, I had given everything I could have taken it as far as I could, that me being there was occupying a spot for someone else to come in that could help take it to the next level. So people that are in our life, they come into our lives at the, if we're fortunate, at the right time. And then, but they're there for a purpose, and they might not always be there, right? They might be there for a limited amount of time, a length amount of time. And you just got to, remember that section of time they were there and the greatness that they did, right?
Right.
Because things are going to transition, transform, and move on. So we'd gotten an organization where, for the audience out there, that if this is the first time you're listening, 100% of the money generated for Cowtown Warriors goes straight to the wounded, ill, and injured veteran. And we were able to do that because we have some generous underwriters. We have an underwriter that underwrites our annual event. And then we have an underwriter that underwrites the one salaried position that we have, Paul Peterson. And not only underwrote it for 1 year, or in the second year of it had been underwritten. So I was like, okay, you've got everything you need. They were like, well, why are you going? I was like, it's time for the organization to grow. I mean, look, I started this thing, I had 7 years in it. I'm ready to move on. Yep. And so Paul reaches out to me, and this is, as you know me, there's no short story, right? Everything is like long. Everybody's like, hey man, can you take the side road instead of the highway? Like, get to the point.
Right.
Tell me what time it is, not how the watch is built. But you said, man, you don't even want to hear your name in the business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Paul calls me and says, and for me to understand where where I can help lead this organization. What would you want? And I said, well, if I knew that 10 years from now, this organization was doing double, triple, quadruple, and became not just more successful financially, but also became the playbook for other cities to take what we did and replicate and do the same thing to fill the gaps. He's like, yeah, that's great. And I said, and it would make me even more excited that that same 10 years from now, someone says, well, who started this? And someone goes, Jeremy Spann. And then the rest of the room goes, who's that?
Yeah, who's that? Right.
And he said, I don't understand it. And I said, if you're truly building something that's not about you, then build it not to be about you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the organization is you, real hard to leave it. Because if you leave it, it might fall apart because it was only about you.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I think that's 100% right. You know, that's the reality is you affect too many lives that if something happened to you and you're the owner, it's going to affect everyone. And so I don't want that. I learned that early on, you know, and I think it's just through mentorship, you know, learning that, you know, if you truly want, and is it legacy? I don't think it's even legacy, even though it's going to be cool to look back and say, you know what, I was a part of that. You know, I had a little bit of part in that story right there. And there would be nothing more meaningful, I know, in my life than that feeling like I was part of that. So that's what it is for me now. It's not why I got in the business, right? You get into the business for other motivations. As you mature and you've had the success and you had the failures and the experiences, right? You get to where I am, and now it's like, okay, you're not going to work for 20 more years. Okay. So what are we doing today to make sure that this continues if you truly believe in the purpose, right? And to me, that's where, you know, uh, I'm telling you, when I hear my name, it drives me nuts. And I call it out right then and there that, no, you know, that's not right. Now, and that's where the growth comes too, right? Because most people looking up don't, you know, they need that leader, right? They want to see, well, what does he think? Where I spin it and say, no, what do you think? You tell me what you would do. You know, hey, CEO, what do you want to do? And, you know, that's where it's really neat. You kind of get a little, you see the nervousness, like, well, you know, I'm not a landscaper. Well, you know, you're not, but what would you do? You know, so um, I think that's, you know, it's kind of a curse with me is I'm more interested in what my team would like to do. And then I'll steer it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you probably do the same thing is, you know, okay, you know what kind of the right answer is. You'll be surprised sometimes, like, wow, that's okay. It's even better. You know, let's roll with it. But then if it's not, it's like bring it back to back to plan, but make it about them buying in and making that decision. So, you know, I think you just learn that before, you know, the first 15 years, it's like, I'm going to make every decision here, every single one. And you love that control, right? It's all about control and perfection, right? The problem is you can't grow it. You can't, and it's not going to sustain itself. You know, it won't happen. I've been there, you know, and that's a tough lesson because I think the motivation when you get in it is a lot about, you know what, I can do it better. I can do it better.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes you to a certain level. You know, it gets you in it and growing it, but then to break that ceiling, a totally different ballgame.
Man, and this is actually what we're talking about in this part of the segment is something that has weighed on my mind for quite some time. So I built a pretty good real estate team.
Mm.
And I'm in the top 1%.
Mm.
People go, oh man, you must do everything right. No, hey, look, I miss things. I've dropped the ball on things, dropped the ball on people. Hell, I dropped the ball on you. I think I said, hey, I'm going to get back to you next week. And then all of a sudden I looked up and it had been like 4 months. I was
Right.
like, oh,
Yeah.
crap.
Right.
But it was also when we see things where we start dropping a ball, we go, hey, I've got a gap. I need to make some transformations, transitions to make this better and stronger, because that's what I don't want to do. I never want to let anybody down. It's like the worst feeling in the world is if I let somebody down, right? And so here it is, been recognized as the number one producing team in Sotheby's here in Fort Worth, 2018, 2019, 20. Number one in those same 3 years is the most outgoing referrals and making sure people buying and selling real estate anywhere else outside the Metroplex got hooked it up with a trusted professional, look after their interests. And even with all that, people say, is there anything you wish you could have or would do different that you could do today that you're thinking about? And I said, I can tell you hands down. 4.5 years ago when I started this, I named it the Spann Group out of ego. And hands down the worst marketing mistake I could ever do. And people are like, what are you talking about? The Spann Group invokes, trust and all this and blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, absolutely. Don't disagree with that. But when people pick up the phone and they get someone on my team that's not a Spann, going to be. So we've had to come up with a new set of processes that helps that transition. And we're getting better at it. But I tell people all the time, I said, if I could go back and change only one thing, because I wouldn't change experiences no matter how painful they are. But if I could actually change one thing, I wouldn't have called it Spann Group, because I am trying to build this thing where it no longer needs me. And we'll get there. But one of the anchors that keeps us from getting there faster is at some point we are going to have to do a branding change of name, or else it runs the risk of stopping at some point because people realize it's a Spann Group, but there's not a Spann that's there. Now, I had an executive coach for 2 years, said, well, there's a lot of things you could do, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I get it. But that's been on my mind. That's why when I started this podcast, Winning Strategies Playbook, the website is not thespangroup.com. It's my experienced for all my fellow Marines, experienced realtor.com, because that was the first part of that transition of still the same people, still the same service. Oh, wait. My experienced realtor. All right, my experience. And I don't know if that will be the name of the group going forward, but it's helping that transition, because as you saw, because I know lots of folks like you who didn't do a transition, did a transformation and made decisions that you're changing not only how you did business, but you're changing the name and all that. That's, boy, you're a glutton for punishment on that one, aren't you, Bubba?
No, I think you said earlier, we're just stupid.
Yeah. Too dumb to get out of our own way. Yeah, I know.
But I think bottom line, what you're talking about, it's about the ability to scale, and there's never a good time to break it, right? Because what happens in business is the success continues and it gets bigger, it becomes more complicated, so my advice is make those hard breaks as early as possible. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. A name is one of those things that you got to break, especially if you want to be, in Houston, let's say.
Yeah.
Right? Who the heck is this guy?
Yeah.
So, and that's a big reason why we even changed from the initials AST, which was Albert S. Thompson, the partner I had when I got into it 20 years ago, which always bothered me. It's like, why are his initials, right? But I was told don't change it because you have market penetration. Okay. well, I'm not going to have market penetration if you're going to scale it, right? So made that hard decision among other hard decisions one time. We're going to just bust this thing wide open. Name, processes, people, it was, what we're going to go big. And, which you go big like that, you're going to fall pretty hard. But we fell forward at the end of the day. That's what I feel.
Yeah. And, another example of this name. So my wife and her family own the boutique brokerage. Having a hard time today. And Sotheby's came in and bought them and 2 other companies that were also local. And when it was around the timing couldn't have happened at a better time. Things were changing in technology, things were changing in advertising. There was a lot of changes going on that a larger organization could absorb more than a smaller organization could. And my wife's family, it was called Mira Vista Realtors.
Mhm.
It was the office right outside Mira Vista. And I'd always said, I was like, man, the hard part is when you put a sign out, people are like, oh, well, no, they're putting a sign because they're selling a house in Mira Vista, right?
Mm.
It just like,
Mhm.
yeah, if you call a spanner, you get a span. And I said, if you really want to be able to succeed, this should really consider the Sotheby's thing, because you can go anywhere on the planet and bring up Sotheby's and someone's going to go, oh, I know my previous guest you met, David, right? He was like, hey, Sotheby's is a global name.
Right.
I knew my property because of the size of it and the expense of it was going to be hard to sell. I needed someone that was a professional that had a name brand that was recognized. Because just like you said, you go down to Houston, Sotheby's. Oh, yeah. You go down to Houston, you go Mira Vista Realtors. You're like, I think I've heard of a community maybe name that.
You
right?
look it up, it's in Arizona.
Right.
And
yeah.
instead of Texas, right? I mean, it's with you.
Exactly. And so when there's young entrepreneurs and they're going through all of their stuff, and they're like, yeah, I'm not really worried about the name, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, actually, look, you're gonna do all kinds of brain damage along the way, and you're gonna get things right, and you're gonna get things wrong, and you're gonna learn. But when people say, well, I'm building my company, well, where should I focus? I'm like, naturally, you need to focus on the business plan. How you're gonna make money? Those are all important. That's all that comes with it. I tell folks, really focus on what the name of your brand is going to be, because it's very hard to change. And it's not that it can't be done.
There's a cost.
There is a cost. You've experienced that cost, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But boy, wouldn't you love to redo it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just
Man.
not entrepreneur.
If I was as smart 20 years ago as I am today,
And it'd be,
we wouldn't be doing a podcast. We'd be having cocktails on the island in Hawaii or somewhere, I just bought an island.
but that's, it's the wisdom, that you want to impart now, right?
Yeah.
You want to impart it with those young entrepreneurs. And we see it. You veterans are so entrepreneurial. That's what if there was one thing that I can say, that what's the quality that you see in veterans, aside from all the things traditionally, discipline and, just commitment and, fearless, it's entrepreneurial, that there is a entrepreneurial bent where when I look at our business, it's like, boy, that's fabulous, because that's what we need. We need that spirit. We need that mindset to be able to push this thing, down the road. And so, you talk about nonprofit, think about the nonprofits in the veteran space in this community. I'm blown away at how many organizations, well, what is that? It's entrepreneur. It's entrepreneurs behind those nonprofits. And so I don't know what they teach you to bring that out, or if that's something that, kind of attracts you to go serve. to some degree. I can't answer that question. But it's apparent that, you know, in terms of being qualified to build businesses and own businesses, you guys got it.
And so when you say that you see those qualities, like, can you give me an example of some of the, a couple of examples you might have seen with, some of these vets that are working?
Yeah, so like I said, the Lieutenant Colonel Hahn, founded his foundation 3 years ago, 3 years ago. Okay, that's not an easy feat to go into that space, nonprofit. I mean, I'm for profit. To me, I can't wrap my brain around, being part of something that, okay, we're not here to make money. So that's a different level of mindset, right? Thomas Williams wanted to, create, nonprofit, the Gallant Few, right?
Yeah.
Another, nonprofit veteran. So when we talk to candidates to come into our organization, right, what do we talk about? Well, we talk about our growth, what we're looking for in terms of putting veterans in locations where they own it, literally, whether it's, a partnership or it's a flat out, we're going to give you all the technology and knowledge to go, open up another market. And you just listen to the excitement. Like, you know what? I was thinking of doing my own business. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And so you put that operational mindset, which all of you all have. I mean, it's all about logistics and, the mission. So that mindset, the operational mindset, bodes so well in our business, on top of the fact that, hey, I think I can, risk adverse. I think I can go do Dallas. You got to be a risk taker, man. And so there's no bigger risk takers than you all. So, those are the little things that I see, like, man, it's not just the talent, but it's also being able to take that entrepreneurial mindset and go create something outside of Fort Worth, and where they grow, and just, it's a multiplier, type concept, which, I'm bound and determined to make that happen, and we're almost there. I mean, it's time to, the vision is there. Vision without traction is hallucination.
Yeah.
Right. So it's time to, let's traction this thing and go make that happen. And we have the people to make that happen. We're grooming them to make that happen.
So there's, I'm sure, a million things you would have done different with the branding change and dealing with the E-Verify and all of that is, I mean, naturally, I'm sure you're like, man, if I knew I would have done this, I would have done that, I would have done this. If another organization is dealing with some of the same complexities and you had to only pick out one little nugget to be like, hey, if anything, this is what I would have done different through that, what would you say?
You're talking about the transformation,
yeah,
or the veteran?
Transformation. Yeah. Open-ended question, I know.
That's, one, you have to have perseverance. Everyone wants to, the concept, talk about the concept. Oh yeah, hey, let's bring this group together. It's going to be wildly successful. Well, the problem is you have culture clash, right? We weren't tracking that. Hey, pushback, like, yeah, threatening, I'm threatened by this, new workforce, that I got coming in. I mean, there's just so many little things that we weren't tracking. So we failed, first veteran we brought in, we weren't veteran ready. Well, you hear veteran ready, right? Well, what does that mean? Well, I can tell you, get the first veteran and they leave, okay, you're probably not veteran ready.
Yeah.
Okay, now why? So the culture wasn't right. So, you can't do one person and say, okay, let's build it with one, see how that goes. Literally, you had to say, you know what? No, we're going all in. We are committed with purpose. And if we don't believe it, and I think that was the hardest thing, is conviction that this is who we are. It's not landscape. It's not what we do. It's how we survive, in a sense. It's how we're going to scale it, but it's not who we are. So you got to have a mindset, the CEO, that's the leader that says, okay, I don't care what happens, we're staying the course. This ain't a one time and boy, let's pull the chute and get out. Plenty of those opportunities. Trust me, plenty of those opportunities. And a lot of friends will tell you, well, why? Well, they don't get it. They don't get why you do that. Why did you do that? Why did you have to sell the building? Why did you not step in earlier, on these things? Because you're a smart business guy. And you can't explain it. I can't explain it. You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? That's just what we're going to do and what we did, right? And I'm not going to explain it at the end of the day. That the conviction is there. We are doing great things. I don't care if it's one veteran. It's enough for me. We're touching a lot more. Okay. And we just want to be different. I don't want to blend. I've never been, that's not in the fabric. Just kind of blend in with everything else that's out there. Let's be different. Let's be great. And you know this, Jeremy, to be great doesn't mean it's easy. To be great, it's some of the hardest work you will ever have to do. And it's not for everyone. And we tell people that, what, we know we're not going to be for everyone.
And a good example of that is, do you mow grass?
Yeah.
Right. And a hard thing to do as a business owner. And I really, truly, honestly think that business owners understand this more than anybody else, is who to say yes to in business. Somebody's saying they'll give you the business. And there's a part of you going, and because you're thinking of the P&Ls, you're thinking of the balance sheets, you're thinking of everything else, going, I could say yes to this, and this is another piece of business, but does that follow my core values? So our core values are, the first one is what we call the value exchange. You must trust me and want to work with me, and I must trust you and want to work with you, because one-sided is lopsided. Lopsided, you're in the convincing business. I don't have time and energy to be convinced nor convinced. I can control whether or not I choose to trust and want to work with you, but I can't control you want to choose and to work with me and trust me. So as long as we have the value exchange, then we have the value proposition, which is your money is always going to be more important than my money. But in order for me to test, right, or validate if you're going to trust us, is what we have now. I mean, how we do our processes now is much different than a year ago, much different than the year before that. And that is, I get the call, let me walk you through the process. Communication is everything. We do more deals in a month than the majority of agents do in their entire year, and some their entire career. And so I know what I'm doing. We know what we are doing. We are the subject matter experts in real estate here in Fort Worth, right? And so it is hard for me to teach over 100 transactions a year to see the world through my lens. So instead, if I present information to you in the way you see the world, then that cuts down a lot of communication errors. For example, if I went and explained things to my wife the way I process information, it would confuse her. Because give it to me in 3 bullet points, 80% solution. I'm going to make a decision before you finish the conversation. Tell me what time it is, not otherwise. that would confuse her. Confusion creates fear. Fear doesn't move the needle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Clarity creates trust. Trust moves the needle. Trust is the currency of business. We must have trust with each other, because as long as we have that, your money's more important than my money.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if somebody came and tried to explain to me something from the perspective of the way my wife sees the world, you would bore me to tears. You'd lose me in 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care about all the details, and I don't need 100%. Like, why are you dragging me down with all this? So we explain to people, hey, we use a system called Culture Index. It is a quick survey. It takes 6 minutes. And you can be one of the greatest people in the world, and I can love you to death. Even a friend that reached out that I've known for 3 decades said, I'm moving back to Texas. I said, yeah, we would love to help you. But he doesn't want to take 6 minutes to take a survey that's going to allow us to communicate with him better.
Mm.
Because once you take the survey, then we get on a Zoom call, so you meet everybody on the team. You see who all the players are that are here to serve you. So I'm already demonstrating that you have a team of people that are willing to sacrifice and serve you, and all we're asking for is 6 minutes of your time.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to give me that 6 minutes, I'm sorry, we're not going to do business together. Is it hard looking at a friend of 30 years and saying, hey, man, if you're not going to take a survey, I understand. We're not a fit. We're not going to be able. He's like, dude, can you just go find me this house? I'm like, dude, can you just take the survey? It takes 6 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
I've had that conversation twice this week, not including him, twice this week with 2 people that are like, I don't want to take a survey. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, we're not going to do business together.
Yeah.
I mean, between these 3 alone, right? That friend of mine and these 2 this week that I got new leads on, or not this week, but in the last 7 days, I mean, we're talking about up to $2 million worth of volume.
Yeah.
We're talking about over $50,000 worth of income coming in. And people are like, you'll say no that quick? Yeah, because I'm not here to be in the convincing business.
Mm.
And if you can't trust me enough to give me 6 minutes of your day, I hate to tell you, partner, it ain't me that you don't trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're already telling me what it's going to be like to work with you, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to drag you across the finish line. Now, I did have someone bring up to go, do you think you run the risk of, by having your process, that's something that would have been an easy deal and a great deal and somebody super awesome to work with, you missed out on that opportunity? Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, I'm certain I probably missed out on a couple of them. Could be my friend of 30 years that reached out, said he's moving back to Texas.
Mm.
But I am willing to make that sacrifice, because if I miss 1 or 2 deals in a year that maybe we should have let them not take the survey, was letting someone skip taking the survey and they trash my team.
Mm.
Not because they're bad people, it's just how they do things, right?
Mm.
And so I'm like, I would rather risk not damaging my team. And if it means even someone that might have been okay didn't want to give me 6 minutes. Because really think about this.
Yeah.
How many real estate deals does the average person buy and sell in their lifetime? Like, I do more deals in a month than you've done in your entire lifetime. Yeah. And you can't give me 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's easy. It's marine proof.
Right.
You open it up, Culture Index. You check the boxes.
Yeah.
You go, which one of these boxes sound like you? These.
Yeah.
Hit enter. That's it.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to add all this stuff. They're just boxes. Yeah. So if you're not going to do that, then yeah. And I do. Every time I turn one down, I think, man, this could have been one that could have been a great one.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to sacrifice the team. David Hargrave, that was here for you.
Yeah.
Right. This dude's worth $1 gajillion.
Yeah.
This dude wasn't buying and selling a $500 house. It was a $2.5 million house. So if a man, or let's just say person, is willing to give me 6 minutes out of their time to sell a property that's going to be significantly harder than what it is that you're asking me to do, is going to give me 6 minutes of his time.
Yeah.
Imagine how offended I am.
Yeah.
Actually, when a friend of mine doesn't want to give me that.
Well, the friend's looking at you as the friend.
Yeah.
You're looking at it as the discipline and what's the greater good of the organization, So you have to be disciplined. Number one, you got to have your process. You got to have your purpose. You have to have your core values. And we're the same, Jeremy. At the end of the day, we hire, we fire, we bring on new clients, always based on core values, period. And it's a check. Check, check, check. We have our core market focus, okay, like yourself, commercial, minimum contract amount this, 35 miles from HQ, and not 36. If it's 36, discipline tells you we're not going to do it. And do you think, well, hey, let's just push it a mile to get another 50? You as the CEO say no, because I look at it, I want a disciplined workforce. Again, get back to, I'm not here. You're creating a sustainable, that they're able to hold the discipline. And you don't want to hold the discipline. You want the process to hold the discipline so you can scale it. This is who we are. This is how we do it. Now, you can always examine that, well, maybe we're a little too rigid here. Have that internal discussion, as a team that, maybe we need to, fine.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. We agree, let's loosen it if we need to loosen it. But at the end of the day, once we set it, it's set.
Yeah. If I was going to change my process to fit clients individually, I would have to change my process over 100 times a year.
Yeah.
Which means I wouldn't be able to do this 100 times a year, basically, right?
Yeah.
And I'm here to deliver value for clients. And if they don't want to recognize the value, I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
Because here's a funny follow-up to that. I was reminded twice last year why we have that process, because as the CEO, I said, you know what, we'll let it slide this time.
Mm-hmm.
One time, ended up losing the client completely. They were a referral from another Sotheby's agent. I wanted to please that agent so much that I made an exception when I should have said, we're not going to be a fit, but I have someone else that probably. But I wanted to, it was ego that got in the way. It's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
If I really got to be honest about it, have a truthful conversation with that person. It was ego. I want to show this person, you're right. You sent them to the best team.
Yeah.
That person lost the relationship. I lost the relationship. Not only did it affect me and my team, I affected somebody else that was trying to trust us by sending something. And I still, to this day, lose sleep over that. It's pain's a powerful reminder. The second time, we got the deal done. But man, let me tell you, there was a lot of kicking and screaming and a lot of damage to the team that I will risk losing a deal that maybe it wouldn't have mattered if they didn't take the survey. I will risk that every time because it's my team that pays for it.
Well, you're the expert. You mentioned it. I'm the subject matter expert. Okay. That designation puts you in a position to be able to construct the model that's going to be the most successful for the team, right? As much as you want others to help construct it, you're the subject matter expert, right? And you're done training. 20 years I've been training. I'm done with it. I'm done with those outliers, okay? Because I've run the trap.
You've learned the lessons you needed to learn.
We're done, okay? And we're not going to be for everyone. And that means clients too. We're just not, and I don't like those conversations, but I've gotten pretty good at them to say, this is not us, thank you. And as much as I like to try and steer it, to others, it's just, business. This is not who we are. Thank you, though, very much, and move on. And make sure the team is disciplined and focused and, kind of at those times, no gray space, because your time's important, my time's important. So when someone brings a deal to me that, hey, I have this opportunity, okay, they have the checkbox. They know what I'm looking at, and I tell you, if it's out of the box, I know I got more work to do with that person.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know what my answer is, and they know what the answer is. Not that we can't talk about it, but the answer is the answer. I'm not there. Let that answer your question.
The discipline of the process.
It's discipline.
Man, let me tell you, I always take something away from one of these episodes, and Man, how you phrase that is what I'm going back to tell my team.
Yeah.
And so
let me tell you just on that point,
Yeah.
because it clicked with me last year. Scott Mann, I don't know if you've heard him talk, but he's a Green Beret. Rooftop management, so he's a consultant. Heard a podcast where 2019, 2020, COVID, everyone got punched in the throat. Most companies, when they got punched, they lost the discipline and they just reverted back to all the bad habits. Oh yeah, that's 36 miles out. Yeah, we better take it. Better take it, right? Well, the outcomes are not going to be any different. It's going to be a bad outcome and you regret it, right? So discipline, it's the hardest thing to do when you get punched in the throat. And you got to be that guy that, I don't care how ugly it gets, we're gonna hold the line here. So that just, it clicked with me, because in that same podcast he talked about, when you're in the valley, you're climbing the to get to higher ground, right? You always are trying to get to the higher ground, for the vantage. So you get through COVID, you're now on higher ground, you're able to see the next peak that you got to go climb. But the problem is you got to go back down into the valley to get to that bigger peak. It's the discipline that's going to get you there.
Yeah.
And the lessons learned, that you're not going to make those same mistakes again.
So if you were going to go back and talk to 20-year-old self,
Yeah.
and I know that we would listen at 20 anyways, but if you knew 20-year-old self was willing to listen to just one thing, what would be that one thing you would tell 20-year-old Tim?
It's about the people. Knowing what I know today, it's about the people and the relationships with the people, and not the ego, that I'm, I got it all. No, you can take that to a certain degree. And maybe most entrepreneurs need that initially. I just wish I got it earlier. It'd eliminate a whole lot of pain.
A whole lot of brain damage?
Yeah.
Okay, so people want to learn more about your company. You got a vet that maybe wants to be one of these fobs, just wants to come work with you, or people that are within the 35 miles and want to hire you. How do they get in touch with you? How do they connect with you?
Yeah, so the website, uvetsolutions.com. My number, cell phone, 817-832-4711. Give me a call. If you're a veteran, and it's not always about a job with us. If you just need advice, you want to talk to Lieutenant Colonel, about the transition process. We try and, the tentacles go outside of this organization, but we feel the greatest gift we can offer is a job during that transition. We hope you stay with us for a long time, but we realize, and our experience tells us that, sometimes we're just a stepping stone, and that's okay. So, if you're in that transition mode, please look us up. If your clients, we're commercial landscape, Fort Worth based, that's a pretty big 35-mile radius. That covers a lot of ground. Would love to do business with you.
And also the Apache Warrior Foundation.
Absolutely. Great.
Right?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
So please look up Apache Warrior Foundation. Our Chief Operating Officer, Lieutenant Colonel Hahn, is founder of that organization. You got to go watch he has an hour docu-drama of a mission in Iraq that he produced. I believe it's either Netflix or Prime. Amazing. And this is live footage of a mission that didn't go well, that he was a part of. That, I mean, if that doesn't get you excited about his foundation, man, nothing will. So, yeah, absolutely. We're all about his foundation, your foundation, and really all those nonprofits that are out to help veterans.
And in case you didn't catch it, you can always go to myexperiencedrealtor.com. It's experience with an ED. Click on Tim and read more. We'll have the information on there. Tim, thank you for coming.
Jeremy, thank you.
Man, this is great. I appreciate it. Yeah, man.